Is Ben 10 as great as we remember? Today, that's the question I'm hoping to answer by going through the final season of the OG series. Now, if you haven't seen the previous parts of this video series, of course, I recommend watching those first, and you can find them linked in the description below. Outside of that, though, it's Big Ben time, but first, a word from our sponsor.
I don't know what's scarier, the smell of wet stink or these aliens.
Well, Gwen, I can answer that question for you. Wet stink, which is where today's sponsor, Scentbird, is gonna be able to help you out. Now, Scentbird is a fragrance subscription service of sorts. With them, you can take a quiz that will tell you which fragrances will suit you best. Alternatively, you can also just pick out the ones that sound good to you. Either way, they'll be shipped directly to your door. So each month, you can pick out a new fragrance for just $17. And this isn't some tiny little baby boy amount. This is a 30-day supply. For example, Scentbird has sent me Paper Plus, Milk Plus, and Get a Room. My favorite was definitely Milk Plus, which smelt a bit like marshmallows on a campfire. If you want to know anything more about these fragrances though, you can check out their links in the description below. Now, Scentbird is only available in the US and Canada, but if you live there, you can use my code LOWART for 55% off. That's just $7 for your first 30-day vial. So try out something new and smell extra fresh with Scentbird. But without further ado, let's jump back into Ben 10. Conceptually, the first episode in Season 4 of Ben 10 is a great way to jump back into this world. See, this time Ben is having the perfect day, but things are also off. His watch is rapidly switching for no apparent reason, and more importantly, Grandpa and Gwen are acting really strange. Eventually, another Grandpa and Gwen appear, and Ben needs to choose which pair is real and which pair is fake. This is one of these episodes that doesn't leave much room to breathe, and that's what I like about it. We're constantly moving from one idea to the next, yet all of it is pretty neatly connected by the Forever Knights' plot to trap Ben in this dream world and steal the watch. Part of why this works well as a premiere is that so many previous pieces of the series are returning here. Steele, Kevin, Vilgax, the bullies, and I could go on. Sure, they aren't the real versions of them, but it still works as a solid reintroduction to the world of Big Ben. They also use this concept for some pretty creative scenes. In particular, I really like when we get a version of reality where the villain wins, but then it's revealed that now he's hooked up to the machine and living in his own dream world. It's nothing all that crazy or anything, but it's a nice way of pushing this idea a little bit further. Now, on a character level, not all that much is done with this conflict. Like, the characters don't go on about some lesson Ben's supposed to learn based on this, and thank goodness. Normally, I'm the type of guy who might complain about that sort of thing. I mean, obviously, this sort of concept leaves plenty of room for Ben to grow, for him to learn that maybe his ideal perfect world isn't all that perfect and he needs to be challenged, or whatever idea you can come up with that. It's pretty easy to think of things. But after my last video on this, I'm honestly kind of hoping they just spend most of the season going this route. I would rather they focus on fun, snappy conflicts like this and forego the whole song and dance of Ben supposedly changing for the better. Regardless of that though, the reveal at the end of this episode holds a lot of potential. See this guy? Yeah, he wasn't the Forever Knights' leader. Nah, now the true leader appears. My main hope here is that this guy will function similarly to Vilgax in Season 1. Because even if Vilgax didn't appear in every episode, he popped up enough that there was this looming threat over the narrative, this inherent tension that comes from wondering when he's going to up the ante and appear himself to get the watch. It gave the season the feel of an overarching conflict without really taking away from the writer's freedom to tell varied episodic stories. This seems like a good way to go back to that. Unfortunately, the season's second episode doesn't really tap into that potential. Instead, this is another Dr. Animo plot, and after getting a taste of the watch's power, he wants more. At the same time, Ben's unlocked this new alien that can duplicate itself. This episode goes for a lot of comedy, but it doesn't really work for me. Most of it boils down to bad banter that I've already complained about. It's not particularly witty or snappy or clever, it's just Ben being a jerk and ruining his family's relaxing day at the beach. That's basically where this humor is supposed to come from. Worse still, the episode's back to these half-hearted lessons where Ben looks at everyone at the end and says, "From now on, we can have fun your way, guys." I don't believe you, Ben. Get out of here with that. Outside of that, though, if you're a fan of Dr. Animo or this type of arguing between characters, this might be a fun time for you. But I've never been a fan of either of those things, so not much here for me, even if it isn't some horrible episode or anything like that. It's just mediocre. Unfortunately, the next episode is worse. Here, Hex is looking for the Fountain of Youth. Of course, the gang will need to stop him. However, when Grandpa accidentally drinks some of the water, they have another situation to deal with. On paper, I don't mind these ideas. First, this lets us see some of the alien's younger forms when Ben drinks the water, so we've got a neat little gimmick with the watch. Second, this could serve as a good opportunity to learn more about Grandpa's struggles being older, but that doesn't really happen. We just see that Grandpa feels better, but he's also a bit weaker, and yeah, that's about it. Ben, meanwhile...
Well, if you can't read the words, Grandpa, maybe we should get you a magnifying glass or a big telescope.
The one thing about old people is they don't want to be reminded they're old. Are you all right?
Oh, yeah, fine. Must be the Florida heat and humidity.
They say older people need to stay indoors in the summer. You should probably go in the rust bucket and cool off.
Oh, Ben. Ben, this little guy, he's back to being a jerk to Grandpa. And I'm sure you all know how much I loved that last season. The plot also has some silly elements that I don't really get. Mainly, the guardian of this magic water puts it in a dunk tank at a carnival for some reason, and then he's mortified that someone might get dunked. I don't follow it. I don't get what's going on. I would understand bending logic a bit if this was in service of some sort of joke or something particularly funny, but I don't really get the idea here. Is it supposed to be funny? Alone, I might not care too much about this moment, but this issue is bigger than that because the Guardian himself is very bland. It's a shame too, because we get hints of something interesting from him, where he mentions how living forever isn't all it's cut out to be. This could easily tie into Grandpa's struggles with being older this episode, but unfortunately his nonsensical actions make it harder to get invested in his story, and beyond that, we don't get much time to explore his personality. Instead, it's action time, baby. And the action is, it's fine. A bit drawn out and bland though, honestly. Again, I'm at a point where the aliens can't carry these fights alone. I definitely need more of an emotional component or something incredibly creative to be happening. Right now, a lot of the aliens also feel like one-trick ponies. There aren't many exciting cuts with them or moments where I go, oh wow, that's pretty cool. It's mostly just a bit bland, even if it's totally inoffensive, which is exactly what I've got to say about this episode overall. Next up, we have this wedding episode. Here, an alien and a human are getting married, and things are very tense between the families. Why? Well, the humans are plumbers, and there's been a long-standing conflict between them and these sludge puppy guys. But since their marriage could lead to an end of years of conflict, someone wants to stop it. First off, I like that we're getting a bit more world building from this conflict. Much like the Gladiator episode, it's cool to get a wider view of this show's potentially massive world. The dynamics between plumbers and aliens is definitely a part of that worth exploring. Also, some of the episode's twists and turns are pretty fun. In particular, I liked the reveal that the bride's family are the ones who really don't want this marriage to happen. The episode did a good job of casting enough suspicion on the groom's plumber parents that I mostly had my eyes on them, but not so much that it felt overly obvious something else was going to happen. Additionally, we get a cute Ben and Gwen moment where Ben is super nervous about dancing, so Gwen helps teach him. It's moments like these that still give me a hint of hope for their friendship. Hope that the writers will move forward with them as a team, rather than an on and off pair that spends most of their time arguing. However, nothing in this conflict really grabbed me. I mean, sure, I can mention an idea or a moment I enjoyed, but overall, it's just another okay episode of Ben 10. The type that might have given me a decent dose of entertainment in season 1, but that by now is starting to feel a little bit stale. Of course, part of this comes down to how I'm watching the show, episode after episode, instead of catching it once a week. All that is to say that this isn't a bad episode, not even close, but it also isn't all that special. It's just pretty okay. I can't say the same for the next episode though, because this one is really boring. This time, a gang steals the rust bucket, and now Ben, Gwen, and Grandpa have to get it back. I won't spend long here, because this is one of the most nothing episodes in the whole series. The vast majority of it is spent on chase scenes that look fine. As for a narrative pull, Ben and Gwen are supposed to be learning that the rust bucket is cool, which honestly, I'm not invested in what they think of the rust bucket. I don't care one way or the other. Really, I'm sitting here trying to think of something else to say about this episode, and I can't. I basically remember nothing about it, and I've watched it multiple times for this video. There's really just nothing for me to dig into here. If you enjoy the idea of really long chase scenes, all the power to you. But if you want an interesting or engaging villain, or to see a new side of these characters, or to get some memorable interactions between them, well, it's probably time to go to another episode. Speaking of another episode though, I like the next one quite a bit more. This one begins with Ben seeming to accidentally break Gwen's computer. Since he feels bad and doesn't want her to find out, he needs to find a way to fix it. So he joins a fighting ring and tries to win the $10,000 prize, and with that money, he can buy her a new one and have plenty of change to spare. On a basic level, I like where Ben's motivations are coming from with this one. Sure, he shouldn't have been using her computer without permission, but he genuinely didn't mean for anything to happen to it, and he doesn't try to brush this off with a simple, sorry. Nah, to the best of his abilities, he tries to fix it, and at the end of the episode, he even admits what he did directly to her. Additionally, when he learns that others need this money to save their mom and their farm, he can't help but aid them in their quest and give them the money. Really, it feels like we're back with good Ben again, not the bad Ben who took up so much time at the end of season 3. Other than that though, well, the idea of Four Arms being a fighting ring champion is inherently kind of fun to me. I mean, now we can see him go up against a variety of foes, try different fighting styles, that kind of thing. And while we do get a bit of that, it's not as much as I'd expected. In fact, I found the fighting ring fights to be the most bland part of the episode. The quality of action just isn't there. This is where I wish the show's action looked great with more consistency. After all, previous episodes have had some cuts that are genuinely phenomenal, and I don't want to downplay the amazing work that went into certain parts of the series, but there was nothing that stuck out to my mind here in this one. Again, the action isn't bad by any means, but in a show that's so focused on this sort of thing, well, I'm honestly left wanting a bit more. Of course, this is still a pretty decent episode though. Really, just having a conflict based on a relatively likable Ben already goes a long way for me. And following this, we get even more of a Ben I can get behind with another future Ben episode. This time, we're mainly following his kid named Ken? Seriously? You know what? Actually, Ben is the type of guy who would name his kid Ken. Anyway, when Ben gives Ken an Omnitrix for his birthday, things quickly get complicated. Especially when he strikes up a friendship with Kevin's child, Devlin? Really, Devlin? You know what, actually? Kevin is the type of guy who would name his kid Devlin. Anyway, a lot of fun stuff happens here. First, we get some good father-son conflicts between Ben and Ken. See, though Ben gave Ken an Omnitrix, it's a pretty limited one. Instead of containing the thousands of aliens Ben's does, it only has 10. Additionally, Ben put a limiter on it, so it turns off after a set amount of time, resetting Ken to a human. Conceptually, I like this idea a lot. Ben is just worried about his kid and wants to keep him safe, but in doing so, he's also limiting his potential. Really, this conflict is all about a parent trying to find the right balance between nourishing their child's development and protecting them from a harsh world. And that's definitely an idea I'm down to see this show explore. Now, the way Ben goes about this is really stupid though. I mean, isn't putting a limiter on this just making it more dangerous for Ken? After all, he gave this to Ken, so he should know that Ken's going to do risky stuff with it. What if it runs out of juice at the wrong time? Or what if Ken finds himself in a situation where a different alien could have saved his life? At this point, it feels like Ben is treating this more like a fun toy to be used with supervision, rather than the powerful weapon it is. And that's not really a problem. Actually, I think that's part of the point. Really, Ben isn't taking his child seriously enough here. That clearly doesn't come from a bad place. Again, he just wants to protect his kid and care for him properly, but sometimes it's hard to find that balance, and there's no easy answer. However, when Devlin tricks Ken into letting Kevin out of the null void, things get even spicier. Clearly, Devlin did this because he wants his dad's support and affection, but he is not the same crazed monster his parent is. No, he's quick to say that this is going too far, and even joins forces with Ben and Ken to stop him. Then, when Ken removes the limiter from his watch using gray matter and saves his dad's life, both the audience and Ben see how capable Ken can be. Throughout all this, they become a closer pair, and both of them are able to grow together. Much like the previous Future Ben episode, this one is really good. Compared with the usual Ben 10 fare, there are a lot more layers to this moral message and its characters. This empathetic look at a child wanting to follow in their father's footsteps, while we look at another child who's strong enough to not follow in his father's path. It really struck a chord with me. Plus, there's a little bit of an idea of Ben expecting Ken to need to go through the same hardships he did, needing to learn to use the watch with a timer, needing to only have 10 aliens. Maybe even if those struggles helped Ben grow, Ken will find other ways to grow. At the end of the day, this is an episode that makes fantastic use of its runtime. From the action, to the characters, to a convincing moral lesson, it's got everything I want from Ben 10. I sadly can't say the same thing for the next episode, which makes up the second and final two-parter in OG Ben 10. Here, many of Ben's past villains join forces, becoming the -10. And these people are brought together by the leader of the Forever Knights, who's on the hunt for the sub-energy that he can no doubt use to do bad stuff. Meanwhile, this kid named Cooper's temporarily joined our core team. Since he's one of Grandpa's plumber friend's relatives, he knows all about the plumbers, meaning that he can help out the group. And he does just that, using his abilities to manipulate machines. Let's start with the Ben and Gwen conflict in this episode. As usual, they're fighting. This time it's over some tickets to a show they wanted to see. When Cooper arrives though, he reveals that he has 2 tickets, so only one of them can come along with him. Of course, now both Ben and Gwen spend these 2 episodes trying to butter him up. Unfortunately, this means that instead of spending more time with Ben fighting the Forever Knights as leader, or raising the stakes with the -10 by creating a personal conflict, Ben spends most of his time in these episodes just trying to get closer to Cooper for his own selfish gain. Yeah, not doing much to get me invested in him or this conflict, that's for sure. And this is a particularly bad idea during this type of thing because with the -10, we already have plenty of characters and potential conflicts to juggle. I mean, they only have 40 minutes to juggle all these players and develop the Forever Knights leader. Yeah, that's gonna be tough, even without the silly Cooper crap clogging up the gears. Unfortunately, this really speaks to how the -10 are treated overall. I mean, sure, the idea of having a villain group comprised of previous foes is inherently cool. Right away, I can't help but wonder how Ben was going to be able to take them all down. After all, they put up quite the fight individually, so together? Well, this should be something else. But not really. These characters barely use their unique superpowers in interesting ways. They each just have one basic gimmick they might use, then they're tricked into fighting one another, and then they all get trapped together in an incredibly anticlimactic scene. Many of these characters don't even speak throughout the entire conflict, making them little more than warm bodies to fill out the group. The only character this works for is Clancy, who's turned into a cool-looking monster guy. Otherwise, I'm just left wondering, why did we need 10? Obviously, I get they wanted to play off the show's name, but that doesn't seem worth it if it means misusing these characters or barely getting to use them at all. I would have far preferred less villains being in the group, but having them get ample screen time. Whether it was for budgetary reasons or scheduling conflicts or anything else, clearly giving each of these villains their time to shine wasn't gonna happen, so while I can appreciate the ambition, I think the best course of action would have been to pare things back a bit. Maybe some of this could have been avoided if these villains had been part of the previous conflicts this season. Like, what if each episode featured a different villain and then ended with the Forever Knights coming to enlist them? Obviously, that would require a major restructuring of most of these conflicts, but I'm just spitballing here. My point is that there were possible ways to make this work, but it would have really involved committing to the idea of the -10, not going halfway like this. Really, the only potentially cool thing about them is that they're all human villains. So there's this implication that the Forever Knights' hatred of aliens has limited their options. But that's pretty much all subtext. There's little, if any, focus on that in the episodes, so it doesn't mean all that much to me. Speaking of the Forever Knights, though, they might not have worked out as the thing I was hoping for where they loom over the whole season, but hey, maybe Ben facing off with the main villain is gonna be good. Well, it's honestly, I thought it was super bland. Ben turns into Upchuck, spits at him a bit, and then it's over. Just like that, this threat that felt potentially massive is reduced to nothing. And again, the alien is used as little more than a one-trick pony. I mean, all we have to do is look back at the final fight in season 1, and we can see a big difference in which of these is a proper climax to an arc, and which of these is just kind of another fight. Having a plumber gone bad is a cool idea, but the execution here is severely lacking. Then, finally, after the good guys win, they go to drop Cooper off at home. He reveals that there were never any tickets, and he lied because he wanted to spend time with them, which maybe could have landed if I cared about Cooper, but he's also done barely anything. He's a little shy and quiet, I guess. That's basically his personality. Really, he just got mind controlled by a character who didn't even get to talk. That's about it. Honestly, I feel like these episodes would have been better if he weren't here at all. In the end, this conflict just reeks of missed potential. What a shame. But the show must go on, and go on it shall with another What If episode. Much like with the Gwen 10 episode in season 2, that's a real shame. Because here we get to see Ben return home from vacation. We learn a bit about his home life, and we see him struggle to keep this secret in school. We see the tension between his dad and Grandpa, the distance between them because Grandpa kept his plumbing lifestyle a secret from him. Through all this, Ben is being told to try and go back to normal, which he doesn't want to, but even if he did, the world isn't just gonna let that happen. No, threats will keep coming. Heck, Vilgax is back. Even his parents will be put in danger, his home will be destroyed, and through it all, he will need to keep being a hero. Meanwhile, Ben's dad and Grandpa are forced to start a dialogue about this, and there's some serious potential there to see Grandpa change for the better. But again, This is all a what if. I'm not sure why either. My best guess is that the writers or producers wanted to leave this open for future seasons, and they didn't want to lock themselves into a certain path for those series, meaning that they didn't want to commit to everyone learning Ben's this hero, or to his dad and grandpa coming to an understanding. It's such a shame too, because I think some of these ideas are really great. I just wish the show had the confidence to commit to them. As it stands, this episode is one of the more interesting ones this season, but so much of its potential is undermined by its status as a hypothetical. If that sort of thing doesn't matter to you though, I think this one is a pretty good time. And that's all the episodes in Ben 10's 4th season. Kinda. See, I've only gone over 10 episodes, and each of the previous seasons had 13. So where are those 3 other episodes? Well, those 3 other episodes were used to create a movie, Ben 10, The Secret of the Omnitrix, which is what I'm going to be reviewing next time when we wrap up this OG Ben 10 retrospective. And after watching that, I'll finally be able to give my big conclusion. As for this season though, well, it was better than season 3, that's for sure. I liked it a lot more. However, there were still many conflicts that I merely found okay or passable, and there were still a couple that I really didn't enjoy. Overall, Ben 10 still isn't really grabbing me, and I haven't seen the improvements I was hoping to see since all the way back in season 1. Again, I have a lot more respect for what this season did than the last one, but it still fumbled pretty hard with things like the -10. But who knows, maybe the movie will be the best thing Ben 10's had to offer yet. Either way though, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one. Remember to subscribe to the channel to be notified about the next part in this video series. I hope to see you there. Also, thank you to my wonderful patrons whose beautiful names are just scrolling on by. What a wonderful bunch of people. Thank you. And yeah, I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye for now. See you next time.